Hey guys, how's it going? My name is Simon, and in this video I'm going to cover the Unix Administration grade lab called System, Startup, and Services. Like I say in all my videos, this video is intended to help you prepare for your test that's coming up. This is a grade lab that's already past due, so you can't do it anymore to get any marks, but I am going to go over this lab and show you how to do it. That way you have more confidence when you go into your test, and hopefully you get an amazing mark on your test. But having said that, please make sure that you're doing the practice lab and the grade lab on your own at least once before watching this actual video, because that's the only way that you're really going to benefit from this whole experience. Obviously, the practice lab is just a step-by-step tutorial. It teaches you everything you have to learn step by step, and it's very easy to follow, so you should have no problems going through that. If you do, let me know and I'll help, but it's really the grade lab that's going to challenge you, because it's not going to just ask you to do things that you learned in the practice lab. It's going to ask you to do things based on previous labs and even the fundamentals of Unix course, things that you learned in your very first Unix course at Mohawk College. So it does make you think outside the box sometimes, it does challenge you, and that's why I'm making these videos, so you can remember some things that you learned in the past that you're forgetting to do in these grade labs, and you'll see it's really not that bad. This one is a little bit tricky, and you'll see that, but like I said, I'm going to go through this and you'll see if you're struggling with anything. Hopefully I'm going to clarify all of that up for you. So with that being said, let's go to part A and set up the lab. All we have to do is get fresh copies of the W01 and S01 virtual machines. So go to VirtualBox. If you have the W01 and S01 virtual machines in there from a previous lab, just get rid of them. We want fresh copies. So right click on them, click remove, click delete all files, and then click on File, click on Import Appliance, search for your OVA file on your computer, go to well, in my case I'm going to go to desktop and it's right here, but yours might be in a different location. Open it, click on Next, and then you can change these settings to whatever you want. If I'm on a Mohawk College computer, the only thing I really changed is the W01 virtual machine. I just changed the CPU number from 1 to 2, and I changed the RAM from 1024 to 2048. And that's it. When you're happy with your settings, click import and just wait. And while we wait, I just want to make sure as well that while these are loading, make sure you get your DVD ISO image array as well. In the previous lab, we learned how to install services and software, and you learned that SO1 does not have an internet connection. So when we use something like yum install, which is the easiest way to install things, you remember hopefully that we can't use the internet to get those files, so we have to use the DVD ISO image to basically get the files that we need to install all these services. So make sure you have these ready to go, because we are definitely going to make use of the DVD ISO image. Once your virtual machines are ready to get started, go ahead and start them. If you have a slower machine, make sure you start them one by one, so that way you're not slowing down your machine. But if your machine's a little bit better, feel free to start both of them at the same time. So I'll just put them there. And let's talk about part B, installing the Apache web server. So this is something that you should know how to do from the previous lab and even from the practice lab. The practice lab shows you how to do this. So when it comes to installing the Apache web server, you might say, well, where? Because it doesn't tell me which virtual machine to put it on. The answer is in task 3 of part B. It says check your work by navigating to HTTP SO1. Well, HTTP automatically tells you have to go into a browser, so you have to use W01 to check your work, but you can see the address is SO1, so we want to make sure that the Apache web server is on SO1 so that this works. So what we're going to do is just log into both virtual machines. So I'm going to log in as Alice using user pass as the password, and then I'm going to go to SO1 and log in as root using admin pass as the password. And I'm going to start on SO1 because we want to install the Apache web server on SO1. So if you remember the last lab, you'll probably remember the easiest way to do it is say yum install and then the name of the service or the software that we want to install. If you type in Apache web server, it's not going to work. Even in this practice lab, you'll see that if you scroll down to part E, it tells you the Apache web server is also known as HTTPD. And it tells you when you install this, you have to install it as HTTPD. So if you go in here and you say yum install and you say Apache web server and it doesn't work, that's because you have to say yum install HTTPD. But if you do that right away, it's still not going to work. And I'll show you. If I hit enter, it looks right, and I'm like, alright, good. If I say yes, we're going to get a bunch of errors. And the reason is, like I mentioned before, SO1 does not have an internet connection. So it needs to find the file somewhere, and it can't find it because right now we don't have that DVD ISO image loaded. So we have to make sure we mount that DVD ISO image before we do this. So let's clear this. If you want, you can type in DF and hit enter so you can see the DVD ISO image is not loaded yet. Okay? How to do that is you're going to click on devices, go to optical drives, and click on the DVD ISO image. It should be there, but if it's not, you can choose disk image and find it on your PC. Click on the ISO image, click open, and if you want, click on devices and just make sure that it's there and it's checked off. Alright? So it's checked off, so that means that VirtualBox is letting Linux use it if it wants to. But remember, we have to mount it first. It's not just going to automatically use it because VirtualBox has it available. If I say DF again and hit enter, it's still not there. So what we have to do is say mount /dev/CD-ROM. So there we go. Now it should work. So if I type DF and hit enter, we'll see right there, CentOS DVD. It's there, it's ready to go. And I think that we can now install HTTPD, which is the Apache web server. So let's do that. Let's clear, type in yum install HTTPD, hit enter. That looks good. We're going to type in yes again, and this time it installs correctly. So that's perfect. So now we've done task 1. We installed the Apache web server. This time, for task 2, we have to configure the web server to start automatically when the system is booted. So how do we do that? Well, we use this command, chk or check config, name the service, httpd, and on. That's how it's going to work. And I got that from the practice lab. If you scroll down, you'll see it right here. It says use check config to set HTTPD to start automatically at all common run levels. So you just have to type this in and that will do that, and it works just fine. But I'm going to show you something really quickly. If I say check config -- list, it'll list all the services for me. And I learned that just by scrolling up here. There's a section here where it tells us we can list the services installed. So here's all the services. It's listed in alphabetical order. If you go to HTTPD, you're going to see that 0 is off, 1 is off, 2 is off, 3 is off, 4 is off, 5 is off, and 6 is off. What we want is for 0 and 1 to be off, 2, 3, 4, 5 to be on, and 6 to be off. That is basically what it will look like if you make sure that it starts automatically on boot up. So when you type in check config HTTPD on and you hit enter, we don't get an error, so that's pretty good. But if I clear this and I search the list again, we'll see now that HTTPD has 0 and 1 is off, but 2, 3, 4, and 5 is on, and 6 is off. So now it's working properly. So that's what you want to see. If you get that on your test and you have to start any services automatically on boot, you'll want to make sure that when you look at this list, 0 and 1 are off, 2, 3, 4, and 5 are on, and 6 is off. Okay? So that's good. Now we can go on to the third task, and it says check your work by navigating to HTTP SO1. This is where a lot of students say it doesn't work, and it won't work. At least the way that I've done it so far, it won't work. If I type that in, we get unable to connect. And the reason why we get unable to connect is that we haven't started the service. Remember, it's a service. The Apache web server is a service. It's either on or off. And you're going to say, well, we configured it to start automatically. But that's when the system is booted. We didn't reboot the system yet. So there's two ways that we can do this. We can reboot the system so that way the server turns on. Or you can just simply say service, name the service, which is HTTPD, and then start or restart, whichever one you want. I like restart, and I'll tell you why I like restart. If you say restart, it will stop the service and start it back up. So imagine that your service is started, but it's just not working properly, and you're like, I need to restart it. It's kind of like turning the computer off and turning it on again, right? You can say restart and it'll work just fine. It'll stop it and start it back up. But if it hasn't started in the first place, all that's going to happen is it's going to say we can't stop it because it's not running, but we'll start it back up. If you say start only, you don't say restart, if it's already started, it's not going to restart it for you. It'll just say it's already started. There's nothing to do. So I find that restart is kind of the sure way to make sure that everything works properly. So I say service HTTPD restart. I'm going to click OK. We get fail, but remember that's because HTTPD was started in the first place, so it can't stop it. But it started it, and we know that it started it because if we go to W01 and we refresh this page, now it works. So just remember here, it doesn't tell you to do it, but you have to start the services. So if you do this, just simply reboot the machine or type in the service HTTPD restart. Okay, now we can move on to part C. So part C says get the scripts. Basically, we're going to get scripts, which is this file right here. It's a zip file. And we're going to put it on SO1 in the root's home directory. So that's really important. Don't just put it in TMP or the temp folder. Make sure once you put it in the temp folder, you move it to the root's home directory. Okay, so let's do that. We're going to use W01 to go to eLearn. And we're going to sign in. Now remember too that we know now how to install services and software. So what that means is that once I get this zip file downloaded on W01, I can simply just send it to SO1 and let SO1 install the unzip package, and then SO1 can unzip everything for me on its own. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm not going to unzip it on the W01 machine, and I'm going to make sure that when I'm on SO1, I basically install the unzip package, and I'll do that right now. Perfect. So that worked. Now remember that the reason why it worked is I still have that DVD ISO image mounted. I haven't unmounted that, so it worked because it's still there and it knows where to check for it. Go to UNIX Administration. Let's go to System Startup and Services. We'll go to the Grade Lab and download that file. There we go. We'll save that. Now we can minimize this web browser for now because we're going to need it. Click on Applications, System Tools, and Terminal. Go into the Downloads folder, and let's say SCP web-lab.zip. Give it to root of SO1. The address is 10.1.1.20, and I'm going to put in temp, and I'm just going to move it from temp to the root's directory once it transfers over. So we'll put in the password admin pass. It transferred. Let's go back to SO1. Let's clear this. Let's go into temp. You don't need to go into temp, but I'm just going to do it to make it easy. If I say ls, we can see that the web-lab.zip is there. So let's move web-lab.zip to the root directory. So there we go. That's how you do that. It's just that little tilde or squiggly line /. That's your home directory. So now if I say cd home directory and I say ls, we will see the web-lab.zip is there. I've already downloaded unzip, so I can do this on my own. I'm going to say unzip web-lab.zip, hit enter, and there we go. We've unzipped it. So now if I say ls in this directory, we can see we have a bunch of new files. We want to make sure we have the date.cgi, which we have right down there, the date.html, which we have right here, the index.html, which we have right here, and then we have something that says make date page Perl. Now this means Perl, and there's a trick to this down the road that it doesn't tell you to do, but I'm going to show you how to do down the road. And this is where people mess this up all the time. But let's move on. Everything looks great now. We are in the root directory, and all of these files did download, so that's great. We can move on to part D, which is just making a simple home page. It says copy the index.html page into var www.html directory. Okay, so this is what you learned in the fundamentals of Unix course. This is something that is very basic. You're just basically going to say cp for copy. I'm going to say index.html, and we're going to put that into /var/www/html. And that's it. And if you want to make sure that it's working, go into your W1 browser, go back to that web page, http://so1, and there we go. Now our web page is changed to this thing. But it does say you should try the links now and more now, but they should be broken. So if we click on them and they're not working, that's normal. So that's really good, but now we can move on to the next page. It says fix the now link. It says the now link points to a static HTML page containing a recent date. To fix the broken link, all you need to do is make sure that there is an HTML file in the var www.html directory named date.html. So if you remember, we already have something called date.html, so he's created this for us. All we have to do is, once again, copy date.html into that directory. So I'm going to say cp date.html into var www.html. So now, if I click on now, it's not broken anymore. We get the current date. Well, actually, it's not the current date. It says Monday, July 13th, but we get a date. So now we can move on to part F, and part F says we can change this date so that it's more current. And what we're going to do is we're going to look at the script. It says basically look at the make date page Perl. So we'll do that. Let's just clear this. Let's say more make date page Perl, enter, and you're going to see a lot of things that you're going to be like, oh my god, I hope I don't have to memorize any of this. And you don't worry about any of this. It's just showing you that basically all it's going to do is it's essentially going to say get date, and it's going to put the date into a file. Okay, that's what this is meant to do. So let's clear this. Don't worry about this. Don't let that overwhelm you. Let's just move on to running the script. It's not going to work. You can already see it says it's not going to work because there's a couple things. First of all, if I hit ./make and I hit tab, it's not going to work. The reason why it's not going to work is that I don't have the right permissions to run the script. Even though I'm root, I should have permissions. You can still type in chmod 777 make date page Perl, hit enter, and now if I hit ./mk and I hit tab, it'll automatically populate, which is great. So it looks like you can run this and it should work, but it's not going to work. And the reason why it's not going to work is that we don't have Perl installed yet, which is what he tells us here. So he's even telling you what to do. He's saying you have to install Perl and try again. Alright, cool. So you know how to do this. We already have everything mounted that we need to install Perl. So we're going to say yum install, and I'm just going to type in Perl. Say yes, and that worked. So this is one where this one doesn't have a weird name. You just have to install Perl. He shows it to you right here. So that's all I did. I just said yum install Perl, and it was successful. So that's all you had to do. Now we can run this, but what he wants us to do is run the script and then redirect it, this guy, into that date.html file. So let's do that. Make date page Perl, redirect it into var www.html date. We didn't get an error, so that is probably a very good thing, but let's inspect our work. You see how it says Monday, July 13th? Well, if I go back and I click now, we have Sunday, October 21st, so that's really good. It's not dynamic, so if you see it says 1451, let's just wait till it says 52 down here. Won't be too long. But you're going to see that once it does hit 52, if I refresh this page, it's not going to update the date. It's still going to say it's 5110. And the reason for it is that it's just not set to automatically update automatically every single time we run the script, it'll update it, but we have to manually run the script every single time. So there we go, we have 252. Let's go back, let's run now, and you can see it's still the exact same time, so it's not updating dynamically, and that's okay. That's what we want so far. So he says inspect your work. Now we could keep the date.html up to date by sitting at our desk all day and running the script, but that would be sad. And that's true. So what he means by that, just in case you're not sure what he means, is we can basically say, look at the time right now, 2:52. I can run the script again, and then I can refresh this page and we'll see it's the right time, but we would have to do that every single time. We'd have to keep on basically running the script like this, and we don't want to do that because that's just a waste of time. So he says create a file named pub-date in this directory, which is etc/cron.d, and tell cron to run mk-date-page.pl every minute. Okay, so I'm going to show you how to do that. I don't know if he shows you in the practice lab. Yes, he does. So this is pretty much it. What you're going to do is you're going to create a file in the etc/cron.d directory, and you're going to make sure that you have stars here. You're going to say who's running it, which will be root, and then instead of this, you're basically going to run this command, which is the mk-date-page.pl, which is Perl, redirect it into here. So that's the way it's going to work. You'll want to get familiar with this. You'll want to look and figure out how this works, because you might see it on a test. Some people have not seen it on their test. I can say that some people have as well. So you'll want to get familiar with what these are, but I'm not going to go over that in this video just because I want to just answer basically fill in everything that needs to be done for the grade lab, so I'm not going to go too much into detail. But I will say that if you have these 5 stars, that just means every minute. So that's exactly what we want. Each star has something that it represents. For example, a minute, an hour, a day, day of the week, day of the month. So there is something to this, but you're going to have to basically look that up on your own, but it's very easy to. And if I have time, I'll see if I can make a video on this. But how we're going to do this is simple. We're going to say vi etc cron.d/pub-date, because that's what they want us to call it, right? We'll just make sure of that. It says create a file named pub-date. That's perfect. So we're going to hit enter, and then what we're going to do, hit I. I'm going to say star, space, star, space, star, space, star, space, star. There's 5 of them. You're going to say the person that's going to be running this, which is root, and then you're going to say home directory mk date page.perl, redirect it into var www html date.html. Alright, so we will save that, and that should work for us. So what cron.d does, just in case you don't know, is it basically is a scheduler. It basically is something where it consistently looks and says how often do I need to update something. So cron.d is going to look at this pub-date file, and it's going to say, okay, every minute I have to make sure I run this script. So just think of cron.d as a scheduler that automatically runs things so that you don't have to. So I hope that makes sense. But what we can see here is if I hit the refresh button, we can see that now it says 14:56. It automatically did it for us. I didn't run that script, especially not in this minute. But you'll see once it hits 57, which will wait the minute so you can see, it'll automatically update it, and then you know that it's working. So while we wait for it to turn to 2:57, let's just scroll down to part G. So it says, okay, using cron like we did in part B is a good way to show that we understand cron, but not a very good way to create dynamic content. The page gets generated every minute, even when nobody's looking, and the time can be up to the minute late. wouldn't it be great if we could generate a page fresh when the client requests it? We can with dynamic pages. The grandmother of dynamic web pages is the Common Gateway Interface, CGI. CGI is not used much today, but it's great for quick little tasks like ours. James has thoughtfully supplied a CGI script for our use. Install the script in the Apache CGI directory, and then test it. So it seems like this is very straightforward, but this is where a lot of students get into trouble because they say, I did everything the way they tell me to, and it just didn't work. I don't understand. So I'll explain where you might be messing up. But we can see here it says 257. You saw I did not update the script at all. So let's just go into W01 and just refresh. There we go. So now it refreshed to 57, so that's perfect. But like he said, it's refreshing it based on every minute. So it's not counting the seconds, so it's always going to say 01 here. And then when it goes to 58, it'll be 58, then 59, but it's never going to change the seconds. So what we want to do is update this link so that it does, whenever we refresh, it basically takes the current date. So let's just start right here where it says install the script in Apache CGI directory. So the date.cgi is in our home directory. So we're in our home directory right now. We can say ls and we can see date.cgi is there. So we're going to have to copy that into this directory. So we're going to say copy date.cgi into var www cgi-bin, hit enter. It's in there now. So it says test the more now link. So let's do that. Let's just refresh this, test more now, and we get a problem. Internal server error. Why? We did exactly what it said. It says James thoughtfully supplied the script, so the script can't be wrong, right? He's done it. It says install the script. He gives us the command. There's not much more to do than that. And it says test the more now link. What did we do wrong? This is where you have to think about the fundamentals of Unix. This is where you have to challenge yourself and say, well, this probably would work for SO1 because we know the file's there. We know we put it in there. We can even check. Let's go back into SO1 and say ls var www cgi bin, and we see it's there. And I'm guessing that you probably have seen friends that were successful in doing this. So you're going to say, well, we know that date.cgi is not having a problem itself. So why is W01 having the problem? And you could go back and try it again. You can refresh it, close down the browser. The reason is you have to make sure that the user using this browser that's clicking on this link has permission to use that file. So that's the challenge. That's the trick, is when you go back to SO1, make sure that you change that file, which is the date.cgi, so that everyone can use it. So how do we do that? chmod 777 space, then the file, hit enter, and now try it. So let's refresh the page. Let's just click on the link, and there we go. And as we can see, we are now at 3 o'clock and 11 seconds, but if I refresh this, 18 seconds, 19, 21, 22, it works. So that's the trick. This is where it challenged you, and I'll admit, it even challenged me. I was working with a student that I was tutoring, and I was sitting there thinking to myself, we did everything right. What's going on? And I had to remember, we had to change permissions. So that's where you might have messed up, and it's not that you did anything wrong, it's just that you forgot. Make sure you change the permissions. So that's it. That's all you have to do. The next part is basically we're going to install this one little service on SO1. We're going to run the grading script, and it's going to show us what we got, which will be basically what you need to do to get a perfect mark. So let's do that. We're going to say yum install wget, yes, and it'll work because if I hit df, we'll see that we still have that DVD image mounted, so that's perfect. Let's clear. Let's go to W01 and let's get that host file, that grading script. So it's elearn just find it. is. Let's save the file. Minimize this. Let's just SCP that file, which is host underscore info underscore services, and give it to root of SO1. The address 10.1.1.20. Let's put in temp. This time we can put it wherever we want. Type in a password of admin pass. Go back to SO1. Go into temp. And let's just run that script. Actually, we have to unzip it first. There we go. Now we can run the script. Okay, it looks like it did a lot of things. If you want, feel free to read it, but if you don't want to, that's okay. We can just send the output, which is SO1 underscore report, to the root of W01, which is going to be 10.1.1.10, and we'll put that in the TMTP folder as well. Say admin pass, because we're going through root. It transferred it back. Then let's go here and say Firefox temp SO1, enter, and there we go. So let's just expand this, see what it says, and make sure that everything worked perfectly. So here we go, host name, we ran on SO1, so that's perfect. We can see the date, which is great. And if you notice, the last part says, does CGI work? It gave us the date, and it's the exact same time, which is perfect. Is Apache installed? We can see that everything's installed. It's there, installed packages, it recognizes HTTPD, so we're good. It says, is Apache running? So it says Apache is running. That's great. Is Apache set to start at boot? Remember what I told you about that check config? We need off, off, on, and off. So that's perfect. We'll get the point for that. Then it says basically check the contents of the HTML directory, and they're looking for date and index. So those are the two files that we copied into that directory. So that's perfect. And then it says cron 2 points, and this is where it says basically, hey, what does cron look like? And it's going to look for something called pub-date, and we can see the contents of pub-date is this, which is what I put in there, and that's why this works. And I guess just before I end this, let me do this. Let me show you something. How cron D works. Let's just see if there's one that's really easy. Okay, so this one's not bad. Basically, I know it's not the greatest, but what you're going to see is, like I said, you're going to have 5 stars. They're asterisks. And the way that it works is you're going to have something that is, let's see if there's an easier one. Essentially, what you're going to have is one that's going to basically, the first one is by the minute, the next one is going to be by the hour, the next one is going to be by the day, the next one is going to be by the day of the week, and then the last one is going to be by the year. And I believe that's how they do it. I don't know if it tells you anywhere else. Let's see if there's anything else here that I can show you. I found one a long time ago that was really, really good. Let's just say asterisks. Here we go. This perfect. So yeah, the first one is the minute. So you have 0 to 59 that you can use. You can also think about programming or scripting. You can say basically if you want to do like seconds, you can say divide by 2, and that way you know that if you're doing minutes, you say divide by 2 is going to give you 30 seconds. So the first one represents minutes. The next one represents hours. The next one I lied. The next one is day of the month, so I apologize. Then the next one is the month, and then the last one is the day of the week. So if you want, memorize this or make sure you can find this, because if you get it on your test, you'll have to make sure that you understand how these works. But you can see right here, in terms of the minute, you can use 0 to 59, but you can also, and I can tell you this from experience, you can say star /2, and think of that as a dividing the minute by 2. So if you're dividing the minute by 2, that'll give you 30 seconds. So you can divide things as well so that it's a little bit easier to do something like seconds, even though you don't see an option for it. The next one's hour. So you can see here that when it comes to the hour, you have 0 to 23. Then you have day of the month. You can use 1 to 31. Then you have month, which is 1 to 12, and then you have day of week, which is 0 to 7. So you have the ability to basically manipulate these the way that you want. So try to play with it. What I would say is think of something where it's like, make sure that you run this script on the on every Tuesday at 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. or something like that. That way you can say, okay, now I'm going to go in here. I'm going to say the day of the week. So if it's a Tuesday, we know that Tuesday is going to be the third day of the week. So you're going to make sure that this is 3. And then you're going to say, I need to make sure that's run at 7 p.m. So you're going to look here and you're going to say, okay, well, 7 p.m. Obviously 0 to 23 is military time. So you're going to want to say, okay, well, what is 7 p.m. in military time? And when you're looking at that, just remember, the way that I remember military time is just remember, like, for example, 1 p.m. is going to be 13, okay? 2 is 14, and just count it up. So if you've gone to 2 is 14, think of 7 as 19. So just think of it as you're adding 2 to that number. So 7 p.m. will be 1900 hours. So you'll put in for the hour 19. So you'll have 19 and star star, and the last star will be, like I said, 3. So star 19 star star and then 3, and that will give you every 7 p.m. on a Tuesday this script will run. So like I said, I know it's really complicated. It's not the easiest thing to figure out, but play with it, because the more you play with it, the more you test yourself, you'll figure this out. And all you need to know is this. Going back here, once you figure out this, all you have to say is who's going to run it. We're going to say it's root, and then you just say what it's going to do. And typically it's something like this. You run a script and redirect it into a file. So hopefully that helps. But if you have any questions, let me know. If I get an opportunity, I will make a video on cron.d. I just don't think I will in time for your test, but like I said, hopefully this was a bit of an explanation that you can use just to prepare a little bit. Test yourself, play with it as much as you can, and thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Bye.